Fourth graders, welcome to Book a Day. I've got a great book to share with you today. Today's book is called You Omu. And already by looking at the cover, I can tell that this book is extra special. Do you see these two awards? The first award is a Caldecott Honor Award, and that's given by the American Library Association once a year to the best illustrations and pictures in a book. And the second award is the Coretta Scott King Award. And this award is given once a year in appreciation of a book that represents African American culture as well as universal human values. So, can't wait to read it. Let's look at our book, or our Mrs. Wordsmith first. Today's word is overpowering. Repeat, overpowering. It's an adjective, it's a describing word. It means overwhelming or unbearable, like a smell so strong that it knocks you over. In this context, our word has a negative connotation, right? Like, not a good thing. I feel like today in our Book a Day, you'll be able to use our vocabulary word in a positive way. Let's read and find out. Thank you, Omu. I can already tell the illustrations are collage. That's one of my favorite type of artworks. On the corner of First Street and Long Street, on the very top floor, Omu was cooking a thick red stew in a big fat pot for a nice evening meal. She seasoned and stirred it and took a small taste. Oh, what a delicious stew, Omu said. Tonight's dinner will surely be the best I've ever had. With that, Omu put down her spoon and went to read a book before supper. Great plan. As the thick red stew simmered on the stove, its scrumptious scent wafted out the window and out the door, down the hall toward the street, and around the block until, knock, someone was at the door. When Omu opened it, she saw a little boy. Little boy, Omu exclaimed. What brings you to my home? Well, I was playing with my race car down the hall when I smelled the most delicious smell, the little boy replied. What is it? Thick red stew. Stew, he sighed. That sure sounds yummy. Omu thought for a moment. She was saving her stew for dinner, but she had made quite a bit. It would not hurt to share. Would you like some? The little boy nodded, and so Omu spooned out some thick red stew from the big fat pot for her nice evening meal. Thank you, Omu, the little boy said, and he went on his way. With that, Omu closed the door and went back to her book. As she read, her thick red stew's scrumptious scent wafted out the window and out the door, down the hall, toward the street and around the block until, knock, knock, someone was at the door. When Omu opened the door this time, she saw, do you have a prediction? Who do you think is going to be at the door? Sometimes we get evidence from the text. It'll tell us what's about to come next. Sometimes the illustrations or the pictures will allow us to make an inference about who might be next. Who do you predict will be next? A police officer. Miss "Police officer," Amu exclaimed. "What brings you to my home?" "Well, I was on duty down the street when I smelled the most delicious smell," Miss Police Officer replied. "What is it?" "Thick red stew." "Oh, stew," she said, and her mouth watered. Has that ever happened to you? When you hear about something that you really like, something you might really want to eat, and when you hear about it, your mouth waters? I know that feeling exactly. That sounds mighty tasty. Amu thought for a minute. There was still enough to share. "Well, would you like some?" The police officer nodded. Once again, Amu spooned out some thick red stew from the big fat pot for her nice evening meal. "Thank you, Amu," the officer said, and went on her way. And so, for the second time, Amu closed the door and went back to her book. Sure enough, as she read, her thick red stew's scrumptious scent wafted out the window and out the door, down the hall, toward the street, and around the block until... Knock, knock, knock. Again, someone was at Amu's door. This time, when she opened the door, she saw... Perfect time to make a prediction. I predict that when Amu opened the door, she saw... a hot dog vendor. "Mr. Hot Dog Vendor," Amu exclaimed, "what brings you to my home?" "Well, I was selling my hot dogs down the block when I smelled the most delicious smell," Mr. Hot Dog Vendor replied. "What is it?" "Thick red stew." "Oh, stew?" The vendor licked his lips. "That sounds quite delectable." Delectable is like a synonym, same synonym, word for delicious. So Amu spooned out some thick red stew from the big fat pot for her nice evening meal. "Thank you, Amu," the hot dog vendor said, and went on his way. Throughout the day, people from all across the neighborhood knocked on Amu's door. She fed a shop owner, a cab driver, a doctor, an actor, a lawyer, a dancer, a baker, an artist, a singer, an athlete, a bus driver, a construction worker. Even the mayor stopped by, and each time they knocked, Amu shared. Soon, the sky darkened, the streetlights brightened, and it was finally time for dinner. But when Amu opened her big fat pot of thick red stew for her nice evening meal, it was empty. Amu sniffled. "There goes the best dinner I ever had." Sorry and blue, she sat at the table with her empty pot until... Knock, 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 knock. Who could that be? Amu wondered. When she opened the door, she saw... the little boy, the police police officer? The hot dog vendor? The shop owner, the cab driver, the doctor, the actor, the lawyer, the dancer, the baker? Why, everyone she fed today was at her door. I'm sorry, everyone, Amu sighed. My thick red stew is all gone. I have nothing left to share. The little boy tugged at Amu's sleeve. Don't worry, Amu. We are not here to ask. We are here to give. The police officer carried in a fresh salad. The mayor entered with roast chicken. The baker brought a collection of sweet goodies. Even the little boy presented Amu with something special in a shiny red envelope. Everyone who had knocked on Amu's door that day squeezed inside her tiny apartment, and together they ate, danced, and celebrated. While Amu's big fat pot of thick red stew was empty, her heart was full of happiness and love. That dinner was the best she'd ever had. There's an author's note. Yes. In Igbo, I'm going to have to research that. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce that word. The Nigerian language of my parents, Amu means queen. Yet for me, growing up, it meant grandma. That's interesting. Right now I'm making a connection. Do you have a different name for your grandma? When my grandmother cooked, she danced and swayed her hips to the radio as she stirred what was often a large pot of stew. In the evening, my family would come together at the dinner table for her meal. If a neighbor was visiting, they were invited. If a friend had stopped by, they were invited. Everyone in the community had a seat at my grandmother's table. While my grandmother has since passed away, her giving heart has stayed with me. I see it in my mother, my godmother, my teachers, my mentors, and the other countless powerful women who have shaped my life. This book is a celebration of their loving, giving spirit. Thank you. Oh, I loved that book. Let's look back at our vocabulary word today. Today's word, overpowering, overwhelming, or unbearable. Can you write a sentence using the word overpowering to describe something that happened in our book? I have an idea. The scent of Amu's stew was so overpowering that everyone in the neighborhood had to come and ask what she was cooking. 4th grade, thanks for joining me for Book a Day. Can't wait to see you tomorrow.